to us. I think most people have been to our events before, but just as a recap, our vision is, of course, inclusive product leadership. We want to do everything that we can to make sure that women and other underrepresented groups in product and tech, I guess, and more generally, can grow and get into those leadership positions. I'm sure we've all been in those rooms where it's full of middle-aged white men. So we want to be able to change that and empower people to be in those positions regardless of their background, ethnicity, etc. You can also scan the code in the corner if you want to join us if you haven't yet. What we do in a nutshell is we do online and in-person events. We tend to have 1 or 2 a month, I would say, usually. And we have also an active Slack community. We've got, I think, close to probably 900 members now worldwide on our Slack. So it's great to see so many people come together and offer support to each other. We also have a mentoring program as well that we're literally just restarting in anger now, and adding some more support for both mentors and mentees to be able to engage more easily. And of course, we are a not-for-profit CIC, so community interest company, and we are free now and will be free forever. We don't want to charge people anything to be part of this amazing community. So here's the faces of some of us that are involved here. So some of us you will see with names and titles underneath. We are part of the so-called core team of FPL. We each have our own sort of roles and areas of interest. But we're always welcoming people from the community if they want to get involved. There's a bunch of areas that we have where people can plug in and support. We have monthly volunteering meetings that people can sign up to and find out more about that. We've skipped through a slide. There we go. So every year we try and put together a few themes for all of our events. So this year, the 4 themes that we have are power, belonging, voice, and inclusive innovation. We don't have set periods for these throughout the year like we have in the past. So we're trying to be a bit more flexible with our speakers, etc. So, but all of our events will be in one of these categories. And if we go to the next slide, there's a view of our upcoming events, which we don't have many confirmed dates just yet. So we have our next volunteer onboarding call. As I mentioned, we do these monthly, and they're on our Luma as well if people want to get involved. And after the summer sometime, so early autumn most likely, we will have an event with Matt LeMay, sort of bringing together the theme of his book, Impact First Product Teams, and blending that with AI as well. So that should be a pretty cool session led by Matt. And you can scan our QR code there in the corner for where you'll go to our Luma page to be able to see all of our events. So today we've got the lovely Parveen here with us to lead this session. Parveen is amazing. I've worked with her before. She has a background in product. She's been a coach for a while now, and she's kindly put together this session for us today around how you can lead yourself instead of just others around you. So yeah, I'll leave it to Parveen to give you guys all a proper introduction into who she is and all of that in the session today. So over to you, Parveen.
Thanks very much for the warm intro, Anna, and nice to be here. And so many people on this call. Love it. What an engaged community. Okay, so I just want to double check. Can everyone see my screen? Just a thumbs up emoji.
Yes, we can.
Or, yeah, okay, cool. So what would be great is in the chat, I'd love to know one thing you're hoping to get from today, and I'll read them as they come in while I introduce myself. But I think it's really important. You're all giving your time. I want to make sure that you've got something to take away with you. So in the chat, tell me one thing you're hoping to get from today. When you read this title, what compelled you to come and to join? While I do that, I'll give you a bit of an intro to what we're going to cover today. So when I was chatting with Bex, one of the founders of the community, she's like, we really want to make sure that we're not just offering advice about how people can lead others, but how can we really look after the leaders, the people who join our community, our leaders. And oftentimes we feel like we're forgotten about in a sense. We're always thinking about other people, we're thinking about the work, about our impact, but actually, if we lead ourselves first and make sure that our needs are taken care of, our boundaries aren't crossed, our time and energy is protected, then we can do a better job of being the leaders that we know we can be and deserve to be with our teams and managing up and also managing a team. And so one thing I will note is that even if you don't directly line manage people, you're still going to get value out of today. Maybe you aspire to be a leader, maybe you already are. But either way, you're going to be getting lots out of today. One other thing to note is that you're going to be doing some work. It is a workshop, and it's not just me talking at you for the rest of this hour. So please make sure you have something to write on. It can be a Miro board, a pen and paper, a Jira ticket, whatever you want. Just have something that is that you can write on and with. So without further ado, let me introduce myself. So a bit about me. I've spent the last 7 years in tech, mostly as a PM in B2B SaaS. I feel like this was the start of a bad LinkedIn post. I've also spent 15 years working in regulated industries, so healthcare, higher education, both in Canada, where I'm originally from, and the UK. And I've led highly engaged teams of up to 10 people. And this is something that I've had great feedback on time and time again, and people wanting to join my teams and really kind of figuring out what is it that made people want to join my teams. And I bring that to my coaching practice as well. I've spent the last 5 years coaching folks in tech in their career, be it finding their next role, pivoting into something else, finding that confidence to be in those rooms that matter to them, and also being able to measure that impact as a leader and not feeling like they have to burn out in order to be an impactful leader. I spent 2 years teaching product management as well, so many arms to my business, and that's enough about me for now. But I want to just take a moment to read some of these comments that have come in. Thank you for already being very engaged in the comments. So what people are looking for, a fresh perspective on leadership. All right, hopefully we'll give you that. Some ideas of how to inspire yourself. Absolutely. I hear you on that. How to learn from others and how they protect their time. Absolutely, that's a big one. And how to identify a point in time where we have to put ourselves first. Absolutely. Being confident with your leadership voice. Yes, we'll touch on that a bit today, but I'll give you some resources for how we can go further into that. Be more intentional, less reactive. That's actually the original name of this workshop, from reactive to intentional. I'll tell you a bit more about that later. And then how to get into the C-suite's brain. Ooh, yes, in order to join them. Well, let me tell you, you don't have to do too much work to get there, but we'll get into that. And then some tips on how to work effectively as a leader, both in management and also setting direction for a business area. Okay. So today we are going to talk about leading ourselves. That is the name of the workshop. And I will touch upon how we can lead up and lead a team as well. Sorry, is there a comment? A question? No, okay, someone was just unmuted. Using my mad design skills, you can see that there is a difference in size of font here because we're going to spend most of our time on this first part here. Now, please do feedback to the FPL team if you'd like to go into other topics in more depth. We can absolutely talk about doing that in the future. So today we want to stop those endless meetings and we want to take time for ourselves, not just to reflect, but to have a plan to take action on how we hold those boundaries and that time that we are inevitably going to put in place. So the first thing I want to remind you of, that you're not bad at leadership. I think this is a voice that we get in our heads a lot of, like, oh, I'm not doing enough. Oh, my team doesn't like me. I'm scared to go into a board meeting and I feel like everyone's just staring at me, grilling me, thinking I can't do the job. And that's absolutely not the point. Like, you've got the job for a reason. You have a skill set, you have a knowledge set that is valuable to your company. So maybe what's actually happening is that we just haven't audited our leadership system lately. That operating system that allows us to feel like we're in flow at work, like we're doing work that's meaningful, that's impactful, but also that we're not burning out. Because if we're not intentionally auditing the system and our impact, all we're doing is reacting to everyone else's priorities. And today we're going to start changing that by being more mindful of where is our energy going and actually what are we trying to achieve in our specific leadership role today. So let's have a bit of a confession time, shall we? Let's put in the chat. In the last work week, so if you've been on holiday, think about your last work week. How many quick pings or emails did you answer when you were technically off? Was it 0? Was it 1 to 5? Was it 10 plus? Was it I don't have an off button? So please tell us A, B, C, or D in the chat. Where do you fall in terms of I'm just going to look at quick pings or emails when I'm technically meant to be off? I'll give it a minute so we can see the answers come in. C, B, and C. Yes. Yep. Some B's. Oh, we've got someone A to B. Okay. Very good. Teach us your ways. Good. We've got some people who have boundaries. We love that. The laptop's closed. We're off. Okay. I know it's not always possible, but very good that we've got so we've got quite a mix here. Now, the reason I asked you that is because if we're really honest with ourselves, are we really being mindful of our energy if even outside of work we're contactable and we can and we respond? And then are we setting an expectation for people to think, oh, well, if I contact you at 9 p.m. at night, you've just tucked your kids into bed perhaps, and you're about to switch off and just veg out a bit, and then you have to hop onto this important email or create a report for a meeting the next day. Like, are we really respecting ourselves and our own time? And one of the biggest mindset shifts I notice with my clients that I work with is that actually a lot of times we're being led by other people. Even though we ourselves are a leader, we're letting other people dictate our time and our energy. And so we'll come back to this in a minute, but I want to make sure that, yeah, exactly. We've had a comment here. A company will never protect your boundaries. It's very rare your line manager or someone else in your company is going to give you time, let alone respect your time. So the more you embed those boundaries and, when you shut your laptop, you're actually off, the more they'll be respected. Okay, so level 1, leading yourself. Now, somebody mentioned in the comments earlier, you want to be less reactive and more intentional. So reactive is like we're showing up to work. There's a fire to be put out. We're a bit like Jonah Hill here. And what we want to think about is how can we move from this reactive mode? Like we're in the passenger seat. We're always answering the loudest ping. We attend every meeting we're invited to. And by Friday, you've been very busy and everyone you speak to is like, oh gosh, I never see you. You're always busy, but you can't quite name what you actually move forward. Versus when you're in intentional mode, this is where we're the architect. We're making deliberate decisions about where our time, where our energy goes. And you're not necessarily less busy, but you're busy with the right things. And the goal isn't to be in intentional mode all of the time. Like fires happen, we get it. Crises are real. But if that reactive part is your default setting rather than your emergency mode, this is where your burnout starts. Is if we're not aligning our work to our energy and what actually helps us, what we can uniquely move the needle on. So what we're going to do now is give a quick, honest look at where that dial currently is. Excuse me, sorry. So my core premise is that like you can't lead other people well if you can't lead yourself. And this is something I learned very early in my leadership career. Is actually with a military training academy that used to be part of the NHS called Staff College. And the whole program was centered around how can we build really resilient, high performing leaders. And every single course started off, do you know yourself well? Can you lead yourself? And so that's where this framework, the idea for this framework came from. Because those energies and boundaries that we need to put in place, that personal narrative, how we speak to ourselves, are all part of leadership. It shouldn't be an afterthought, but often it is because no one's teaching us how to be leaders. They're just expecting us. Are you managing people? Are we managing performance? Do we have that budget report figured out? Do we know the vision for our team and where they're going? So the shift we're making today is from reactive to intentional. And the first thing we're going to do is going to create a chapter title. So I want you to think about the stage of leadership you're in right now. And roughly between now and the end of the year is a chapter in your career story. Okay. So we're well into H2 now, although it's holiday time and things feel like they're urgent, but also slow down because everyone's on holiday. So let's take some time to think about our own career trajectory for the rest of the year. I want you to write down the chapter title you want this to have. So we get to the end of the year, you have one line that describes what you've done, where you're at as a leader, not just your team, but you as a leader. And I want you to think about this as like a type of H2 planning, okay? Like maybe your team is half hired and the rest of the people are coming. Or maybe you're operating exactly as you are and your chapter writes itself. And the one where I answered Slack on holiday, okay? Nothing changes. What does this look like? And I want you to write a better title. And it just needs to be one line, it doesn't have to be long. And I'll give you some time to work through this. Maybe some of you have already started, that's fine. But I want you to write it, not the chapter you're currently living, but the one you'd be proud to have written by the end of the year. And I have an example here. So, the year I built a team that didn't need me in every room, or the chapter where I stopped sprinting and started steering, or H2, shipped the strategy, kept the weekends. Okay. So if you could put a timer on for 3 minutes and we'll come back here. If you want to share in the chat, you're very welcome to. I'll give you 3 minutes. Go ahead and let's write our next chapter title. All right, we've got about a minute left here, but just out of interest, if you're finished, could you give me a thumbs up emoji? Okay, I see some people are still working, so I'll just give it another minute. For those of you that have finished, if you're willing to, please drop your title into the chat. I'd love to see what are we aiming for. All right, I think most people have finished here. Does anybody want to share? You can either unmute yourself or raise your hand or put it in the chat. I've got one here. From replans to validated strategy and working towards delivering on important outcomes. Okay, I would say that's maybe a bit vague, but we can work through this and start getting more specific, especially in the next step that we're going to do. The value added by appropriate cross-divisional alignment is recognized. Okay, we've got some very specific terms here. The chapter where I found my founder flow. I like that. Okay. Hopefully, you know what that already feels like. We find more of it. The chapter I stopped trying to solve everything and am confident in where I can add most value. Yes, stop trying to solve everything. That is definitely something to measure for yourself. Maybe you have your own little end of year review. Maybe we should do a workshop at the end of the year. We can check in and see how people got on. The year I'm trusted for my competent contribution as a product lead and owner for key stakeholders. Yes, absolutely. It's interesting you put my competent contribution. I mean, I see this a lot from folks that I work with, as in sometimes we have to say it out loud to believe that we have that competence and people like believe in our skill. But I'm really glad that you've written that down because it just shows to yourself, like, look, I'm already doing a great job. And now I need other people to see it. That's great. Okay. Well, I want you to keep this title visible. This is not just a nice journaling exercise, a nice journaling moment. This is our measuring stick for the rest of the year and actually for the next exercise as well. Everything in your week either moves you towards this chapter title or prevents you from it. And so, what we're going to do is to try and keep as much intention of this chapter title and bringing it to life as we can over the next 6 months. Now, where can we put this? Well, it can be in the background on our screen of our desktop. It can be on your phone. I have some people who put it as their screen background. It can also be in a place where, let's say, you're working in a document all the time, or even in your inbox. Sometimes you can change some of the titles. It could be the title of a folder in your email inbox. But crucially, I want you to take a minute and figure out where are we going to put this title so I see it all the time. We're not just going to file it away and come back to it and be like, oh, yeah, I was going to do this thing. So take a couple minutes and figure out where are we going to put this title so it stays visible for us. And if you could just give me a thumbs up emoji once that's done, and we'll move on. Okay, I think some people are still working on it, but let's move on to the next exercise. Now, you are going to need access to your work calendar for this next exercise, but I promise it's for a good reason. Okay, we've got someone putting it on their wall. Amazing. So this next exercise we're going to do is a calendar or a diary audit. And I want you to look at your calendar from the last work week. So like I said, if you're off last week, the last time you were working a full week. And I want you to tally up the number of hours where you were in green, hours that actively moved towards your chapter title. Now, I know you didn't have the chapter title before today necessarily, but think about the meetings that actually move the needle. Like, am I getting towards that place where people can see my competence? Am I getting towards that place where people understand the strategy I'm putting forward? And then I want you to tally up the number of hours you were in red, hours that had nothing to do with your chapter and just drained you when you were doing it. Maybe it's a status update that perhaps you could have sent someone else to, or a meeting that could have been an email. What are those draining hours that you spent? And look, they're not always in meetings either. Sometimes they're in individual work. That's fine. And then lastly, how many hours were you in the yellow space? You were doing necessary admin and upkeep, kind of neutral to the chapter. Like, you're the one who needs to do it, but it's not necessarily in the green kind of flow movement. And I want you to tally up the number of hours and give a percentage based on the number of hours you worked in a week. How many were green? How many were red? How many were yellow? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. If you're happy to drop in to the chat your red percentage, it's useful to compare. Some people are quite low, some people are quite high, but actually the point is that we're going to be aware. So I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock, and I would love for you to tally up your green, red, and yellow hours and convert them into a percentage. If you're not entirely sure yet what moves, like what meetings or what time would be moving your chapter forward, you can think about the green hours as in work where you felt in flow. That was sort of work uniquely designed for you to succeed, where you enjoyed doing it, wasn't a drag. So you can think about the green hours that way as well. Okay, see, we have some answers coming in. We have a 60%, a 40%, okay, of red. What else do we have? 30%. This isn't an auction, by the way. It's not a race. Who can have the least? Some weeks we'll have more, some weeks we'll have less. All right, let's move on. If you're still working on this, feel free to do that in the background. But there's a couple points that I want to make about this exercise. Firstly, it's something that you can do every week. I suggest doing it every week for the first month and then maybe down to 2 weeks and then once a month. Because the point is, we want to be aware of where we are getting those energy fillers, what fills our cup, what makes us excited to be at work. And then where are those drainers, those red hours? Like, did I have to be there? Did I not? Could I delegate this? Does this even need to happen? I've definitely worked with a lot of leaders who have cut out some of their meetings because they're like, actually, we're not making decisions, we're having circular arguments, and it doesn't actually make sense to keep showing up. It's quite an expensive meeting. Um, and then that yellow time, obviously, it needs to happen in some way, shape, or form, but what we're trying to do is to maximize the green. That's what we want to get to. So if our green is under 40%, we really need to recalibrate our time because we want to get as much green as possible. I had a leader go from 20% green to 90% green in the course of 3 months. And is 90% every week? No, but it was definitely above that kind of 75% threshold, which is great. They started enjoying their job, being less burnt out. And if we're really honest with ourselves, that gap between the chapter title that we created in the last exercise and our calendar, where that's where burnout lives because we're not working on things that fill our energy cup, but also we feel like we're working hard on a story that we didn't choose. Like someone else is writing the story for us and we just have to go along with it. That's the reactional part. But if we're being intentional with our time and our energy and our work, then we should be working towards that chapter title that we've just written. We'll take some examples of this as well in a few slides time. But one thing I've noticed with working with folks, especially quite senior leaders, is that when we feel in burnout, it's not just that we're doing work that feels like someone else gave to us, but it doesn't align with our values and how we like to work. So the more awareness we have around the type of work that brings us joy, like if you prefer to be writing versus in a meeting, or you prefer to be presenting versus writing documentation, whatever it might be, the more you can fill your time with that type of work, the more you're going to enjoy and the less you're going to burn out. Like I said at the beginning, it's not about trying to be less busy. It's about being busy with the right things. And we don't know what those right things are if we don't know where our energy is being put. Um, and I see that we've got a comment here. I love this tool. She categorized my calendar with these colors. Yeah, I actually used to do this myself where I would put, like for me, one-to-ones, I really enjoyed. So those are always in like a green color. And then if you have, meetings that drag on with 12 stakeholders in the room, no decisions being made, feel free to categorize that as a red. No one else really sees the colors on your calendar. I know I've done it in both Google and Outlook. No one else sees when you categorize your diary, unless you're sharing your screen. But they don't have to know what it means. So that's a nice way to kind of go back and review each week, but also each month, if that's what the cadence you choose to use. Okay, so we kind of know where energy's leaking. We know where our energy is filling up. So what can we actually do about it? Well, I want you to find one red meeting, and conveniently, we're meeting on a Monday, so you have the rest of the week to make a change. I want you to identify one meeting from your calendar this week that you could decline or send a delegate to or redesign entirely. Could something be an asynchronous update versus in person? Could something be communicated in a tool you're already using? For example, when I used to work in health tech, we used Product Board quite religiously. And instead of giving people updates on where we were in our roadmap, we actually just pulled up Product Board. We were able to keep everything up to date there, so it was always accurate. But also, if people wanted to know, oh, where are we at with this item? I just send them a link. We don't need a meeting for that. They can just see it for themselves. So think about one meeting, one red meeting that you could change. And so when you identify that biggest time leak, and it could be time, I should also say energy leak. Even if a meeting is 15 minutes, but it leaves you feeling absolutely exhausted, be it the type of person that you're speaking to, maybe it's the subject matter, maybe it's not your area of expertise and someone's just pulled you in, whatever it might be, do one thing about it this week or before next Monday if it's already happened. Be it sending someone from your team if you have that ability to do so, maybe redesigning it, making it asynchronous, or declining. Do you actually have to be there? I don't know how often you ask yourself this when you look at your calendar. Do I need to be in this meeting? Because a lot of times I've noticed that leaders, mostly unintentionally, get to this point where they're like, I'm not a control freak, but I'm just in so many meetings, I'm in so many conversations. Another place where this creeps up is, are you in Slack or Teams channels that you don't need to be in? You're just in there just in case something happens. And maybe you won't know what happens unless you're there because you don't think anyone will tell you or you won't be informed. If that's really the case, maybe you need to have a proxy in that meeting that keeps you abreast of any changes. But do you actually need to be in there? If you're really honest with yourself, if the answer is no, remove yourself, send a delegate, or redesign it entirely. I'm going to give you a minute to figure out what is this one red meeting we are going to change this week, and then we'll move on to the next item. If you could just give me a thumbs up in the chat once you've identified the meeting and you know what you're going to do with it, then we'll move on. All right, I see quite a few folks are done. If you're still working on this, I'll just wrap this up a bit. Um, This is an experiment, okay? If you leave the meeting and you're like, oh, actually, no, I needed to be there, then join again. That's okay. It's not set in stone. The point is to experiment and try and see where can we buy back some of that time, some of that energy. Because as we said before, that strategic space, doesn't just appear. You have to design it. And by finding that one red meeting and making a change this week, then maybe next week you find another red meeting, make a change, and you do that over time. That's how you reduce the red meetings in your diary. And conversely, you can also identify the green and see where can I get more green. Maybe I do need to carve out that time for development and tell people, you know what? Sorry, you just can't contact me during this time. Or maybe it's actually being part of a meeting that you're supposed to be in, that people are making decisions about your product area without you there. And actually, you can start steering and driving that strategy and making your strategy more visible in those conversations. So it's a little bit of being an alchemist, like how can I get less red and more green? Neutral, ideally, we don't want it to take too much time, but sometimes they're just there. And that's how we start being more intentional with our time. So the more aware you are of where your energy and your time is going, the more you can do something about it. And the way I recommend to do it is just make one change a week, no more than that. Otherwise, it gets very overwhelming. And as we know, humans aren't the best at dealing with change. So if we change a little bit each time, each week, this over a number of months is going to be really impactful, even before we get to the end of H2. Okay, let's move on to the next thing, shall we? So our next thing that we're going to do, this last piece of work, is really our commitment. We're going to protect our commitment to this chapter that we are writing right now. The red meeting removes that drain and energy, but this one's going to add a source. So I want you to write down, so between now and September, that's not very long away, that's about a month and a week away, I will protect X, so be it your energy or something that you do or a particular thing you want to learn, because it strengthens the leader who's writing, and then insert the chapter title there. This needs to be specific and calendarable, so you're not to be able to say, by September, I will have actually protected this time. Either you add a recurring block, or you put in a boundary, or maybe a ritual being something like every Friday, I'm going to review my calendar, or every Monday, I'm going to tell my stakeholders about what we're working on this week and what we're looking to move the needle on, whatever it might be. This must strengthen you, not just remove something. So we're actually actively building something in our skill set. So I saw earlier someone said, oh, I want to know how to protect my development time. Well, what is it that you actually want to learn, and where in your calendar is that going to go? Even if it's 45 minutes every 2 weeks, that's better than trying to spend 3 hours every week, which realistically is not going to happen, even if people are on leave. You only need one. 2 commitments is a to-do list, okay? 1 is a promise. We can keep it, we can be focused. So I'll give you a couple minutes to write your commitment. Between now and September, I'm going to protect something, your time, your energy, your learning, whatever it might be, because it strengthens the leader who's writing, and then you can put your chapter title at the end there. Just give me a thumbs up emoji in the chat when you're done. And if you'd like to share your commitment, this would be a great way to keep each other accountable. That's great. We got some inspiration coming here in the chat. We're going to protect our morning flow time for 2 days a week. And that means no meetings during that time at all. I think it does feel scary to say, but we've put it out there now. And the worst that happens is we try it. And maybe it's not the morning, maybe it ends up being an afternoon. But the point is, you have something concrete to try. So someone's said that they have something in their calendar and still fail to actually do it. So they commit to actually doing it. Yeah, sometimes the system's already there, and our bodies and our brains are like, no, we'll get to it next week. We'll try it again next week. But actually having a reason to do it is helpful. One thing I always coach my clients to do, I know Anna, you'll be very, very familiar with this, is to treat yourself. If you do the thing, treat yourself. It doesn't have to be big. It can be having your favorite chocolate bar, going to see a film at the cinema. Maybe it's going for a walk in your favorite park because you just like don't get out enough. And maybe you do that in the morning for 15 minutes. The point is we want to reinforce this good behavior and this good practice and habits. And so whatever you choose to do, find a way to reward yourself. And I think tying it in with that is going to help you get the momentum you want, versus the, oh, I'm just going to see it in my calendar and I'll think about 20 things I could do instead because they seem more important. Seems selfish to focus on myself. I hear that a lot from clients. And It's just not. You're going to be a much more effective leader if you can ring fence your time. And um, yes, okay. Any more to share? I'd love to see some more in the chat if you're willing to share. Some other examples, if you're struggling to think of some, it could be Wednesday mornings are for strategy time, no meetings before 11 a.m. It could be instead of taking proper lunch breaks, it might be I finish at 5:30 on Friday and my Slack status says so. So maybe you start putting in like the do not disturb sign or, gone for the weekend, whatever it might be, to signal to people, I am not available. Sometimes those small visual cues make a very big difference in how people feel like they're allowed to contact you and when. Um, so yeah, little things like that go a long way, and they're also very actionable. All right, I'm going to move on just with the interest of time, but if you'd like to share any more, I would love to see them in the chat. So our one commitment to protect, we have now finished the section about leading ourselves. Now I'm going to give you a sneak peek at the other two. Of course, we spent more time talking about the first level here, but I don't want to leave you empty-handed. So level 2, how do we lead up? How do we make sure that people who are senior to us um, are understanding the work that we do and why it's important, not just that they know that you're doing something and they're going to pile more work on because they inevitably can't see everything that you're doing and think, oh yeah, they've got more capacity to take on more. So how can we close that trust gap between what people know you do versus what you actually do? Because if you were to ask one of your senior stakeholders, let's say your manager, maybe your skip level, like what did what did we do this week? Would they be able to answer that question? And most of the time when I speak to folks, it's no, because they're not bringing that visibility in a way that makes sense to their senior stakeholders, but also that is speaking their language. And the language that they want to speak, I think someone mentioned this earlier, is what is the impact you're having? And that is a word we throw around a lot. I mean, I've thrown it around in this workshop too. And if you were to break down that word impact and what it actually means to your leadership practice, to your career, it's have you moved the needle on something? Can you have a measurable change in something you delivered? You've saved money for a part of the business. You've had customer retention. Your team has been delivering and been able to increase revenue. So that's the first part. Can you measure it? The second part of it is it visible? Do people know that you've actually made this change? Is that your end user? Is that your commercial stakeholders? Is that your senior leadership? That's how you know you're talking about impact, because you've moved the needle on something in a measurable way and people know about it. That's all impact really is. So, how can we think about this in terms of leading up? Well, what senior leadership actually wants, they don't want the recipe, okay? They don't need to know how the cake is made. They need to know, is the cake on fire? Now, what I mean by this is a lot of times when we're trying to communicate with senior stakeholders, we kind of go into this mode of over explaining. I see this happen a lot of the time where you're saying, okay, well, we have this problem. This is what we're solving. Here's what we're doing to fix it. Here's 10 paragraphs of what that looks like. Here's what we tried and it didn't work. And then deep down in that explanation, if it's written or if it's quite a long explanation verbally given, it's at the end where it's like, this is the thing that actually changed, or here's the aha moment we have, or here's the help we need to move forward. So we want to actually flip that on its head, and we want to start speaking in a way that really latches a senior stakeholder's attention really quickly. And I have a whole other workshop that I run where it's called from reactional to intentional, reactive, sorry, to intentional. And we go much more in depth into this, but I want you to start thinking about how you communicate to those stakeholders in a way that it will really land with them. They understand why you're working on what you're working on, why it matters to the business and their problems, or anticipating what their needs are, and then what your team has done about it and what that impact has been. Now, most of the time, execs will read the first line and then skim the rest. So you need to put anything that's important at the top if it's written. And if you're saying it out loud, you want the thing that you need them to know first. You want to say that first. So we can practice this in a kind of separate workshop. But yeah, the so what exactly. Now, level 3, leading a team. Okay, this doesn't always mean you're directly line managing people, especially in product, because we have so much interface with the rest of the business. Oftentimes, you're needing to influence other people, even if you're not directly line managing them. And so we want to assess for ourselves, like, are we a bottleneck for these people for making decisions? And because if everything goes through us, then we've not really built a team. We've just built a very expensive bottleneck. And this is another thing that leads to burnout, is that every decision has to go through us. We feel like we have to be in control of it. But actually, what we want to know is, have we built a team that is empowered? I know we've heard this term a lot. What does that mean? It means people can make decisions. And if they need help, we trust that they'll come to us and take our guidance and our mentorship and our coaching. Because a lot of people that I work with don't end up being control freaks and a bottleneck because they're overbearing, but they just got there because they really care about their jobs. I'm not saying every leader that's a micromanager cares a lot. Sometimes it's just bad leadership, okay? But most of the time, it's because people who, those leaders really care. And because they know if they hop in to help, they can solve it faster. But there's this quote, and I really wish I could credit where I heard it because I can't remember, but it's, leadership and management is watching people do the things you could do, but worse. And it's not to say that they're going to do a bad job, but rather they're going to do things differently. And maybe it'll take more time. Maybe it one day will be better than how you might do it or have a different, better result. The point is being able to let go of how we actually show up as a leader and not being a bottleneck is something that will help us not be burned out as well. So, a closing reflection. I'd love to know in the chat, if you think about the 3 levels, leading yourself, leading up, and leading a team, what level would you most like to change and why? Um, Asked a different way, which level, if you got it right, would make the other 2 easier? I know today we focus mostly on leading ourselves, but maybe from what we've shared now, you've seen actually there's another level you'd like to focus on. So what does that look like for you? Yeah, the first one, managing yourself or leading yourself, okay? The levels are leading yourself, leading up, and leading a team. Two and three, okay. All right. If you don't want to share, that's fine. This is a really nice place to be intentional about, like, has what we've crafted today in terms of your chapter title, your commitment, does that give you the outcome you're looking for at the end of the year? Um, and managing yourself first, yeah, then leading a team, absolutely. Leading up, sometimes the hardest thing is that someone saying here is attributing what we do in product sometimes it doesn't impact the company metric directly. Yeah, but there's lots of proxy ways that happens as well. Sometimes it's just enabling the work to happen. I know people who work in like platform engineering, for example, they're like, well, can I directly attribute what I do to the revenue we make as a company? No, but it allows the revenue generating parts of the business to operate at a level that allows them to increase the revenue, for example. So sometimes it's that sideways proxy metrics and impact that we're looking for. Okay, one more thing for me. I offer an entire 90-day leadership impact program, one-to-one. And so what you've done today is really the surface layer. And the full program is where we rewrite that leadership code base for your operating system. And so we do this over 3 months. Every 2 weeks we meet and we talk about a different level in each month. So we start with leading ourselves. That is the most important thing for us to do. Then we lead up and then we lead a team. And then we have some async support between sessions and we have actions to take away, like in this call, every single time. So we go much more in depth with things like having a stakeholder map. Who's actually influencing the future of our career? And how can we have more of a say on that? How can we make you and your team more visible within the business? And also building out a psychological safety strategy for your team so they feel like they can operate at their best selves and be truly empowered. And so that is a bit about me. And I would love to leave with one word in the chat of how you're leaving the session today. I've had people say everything from pensive, thoughtful, to a little bit terrified, but hopeful. So I'd love to know in the chat, what is one word that summarizes how you're leaving this session? Oh, yes, we got a Slido poll. Thanks.
Yes, if we can just ask people to quickly, contribute to. Yeah, as a CIC, we need to report on the impact that we're making for our community.
Nice.
So it is actually important for us to be able to capture this. Also, obviously, it helps us understand the impact that we're having on the community and hopefully be able to support the community better in the future. Nice. Yeah, you can either scan the QR code or click the link that Catherine just put in the chat.
Fab. Yeah. See some people typing. Maybe we'll have to sneak in the other ones as well. Someone said color coded, and someone said contemplative about my goal. Love that. To be conscious about how you're spending your time between different types of meetings. Absolutely. More green zone. Oh, you're very welcome, whoever wrote that comment. Love that. Oh, you're welcome, Juliet. Thanks for attending. Yes. Change some reds into greens. I love the color coding this. Excited to talk to my PA about how I can structure around this goal. Yes. Reminded to lead me better as that will result in more impact for the team overall. It's very true. We keep hearing we have to do more with less. We have to do more with less. Well, sometimes we need to do better with ourselves so we can do more with less. But no, that's it.
I have to drop. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Parveen. It's been really lovely and a good self-reflection moment. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. And we hope to see you again soon at another event. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.